All right, good morning. Welcome to Let's Get Growing. It's mid-October now, so of course that means bulb season. We're just getting out a little stash of bulbs here. We're gonna do one of our containers. Now, doing containers with bulbs in Ontario is a bit of a tricky thing. You know, if you watch some of the British gardening shows, they're going to do this, and then they're just going to put the pot somewhere, you know, out of the way for the winter. But we can't do that here, and we certainly can't plant in pots and leave them in place. Some years you might get away with that. Most years you won't. You're going to have freezing and thawing of the containers over the winter, especially if they're smaller containers, and odds are you're not going to get good results with bulbs. But a number of years ago, we came up with this way of doing it. It works exceptionally well, very consistent. So we're going to go over it today. It's really quite easy. What we do is we take down our hanging baskets that were full of annuals, because we never leave them swinging on the porch all winter. You never want to do that. So we take our baskets, dump them out. Don't worry about cleaning them out. It's not going to make any difference. One thing you do need to make sure of, though, is think about what containers you're going to use next spring and make sure that this pot fits into it easily. That's really the only thing you have to do. You have to find a pot that fits into your big containers easily, because you're just going to drop this into a container. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a selection of bulbs in, and we picked them very specifically. I've just piled a bunch of bulbs here, and we're going to sort them out. Just to get started, we're going to put some soil into our mix. Now, this is a mix. This has got a bit of garden soil in it. It's got a bit of our potting soil that came out of containers. We're not using fancy soil. We're not even using new soil. We're using leftover soil and some garden soil. We put about maybe a 1 or 2 inch layer in the bottom. And then we think about our bulbs. So what we're going to do with this one, we are going to do some Ice Follies daffodil, and we've got 5 here in this package. When you're shopping the packages, most places sell bulbs this way now. When you're shopping the packages, take a minute, make sure all the bulbs are good and firm and good sized. You don't want to get ripped off. You don't want to get that one bag of bulbs that has 4 good ones and 1 dud in there. So feel through, make sure they're all good and firm. They have some weight to them. I can feel that. These have some weight to them. So it makes it very easy. So we're going to do Ice Follies daffodil. We're going to do Princess Irene, which is a single early tulip. We're going to do Allison Brady, which is a double early tulip. And we're going to do Hyacinth Aeolus. Just going to give us a splash of white there. We're going to save these ones for something else. To top it off, we're going to put Muscaris in there. We didn't used to use Muscaris, but boy, they've really made a great addition to these planters, so we do use them. Basically, what we're looking for when we do these planters is An early tulip, so a single early or a double early, they bloom at about the same time as the daffodils and about the same time as the hyacinths. So you get a good overlap of the colors and a very long season of bloom time. Almost 4 weeks of bloom, even from just this group. So what we're going to start with, the daffodils, the ice follies. We're going to take them out of the package. We've got 5 good bulbs here. And 5 is really plenty. We're going to put the daffodils in, and we're just going to press them into that couple of inches of soil that I put down. Fairly central, doesn't really matter. I don't know if we can see them there, but they're just organized there. Then what we do is we top up with a bit more soil. To just barely cover those daffodils. Just so we can see where the tips of the top of the daffodils are. Then we're going to take our tulips. So we're going to put 12 tulips in here. So we got 5 daffodils. We're going to put 12 tulips. So we're going to take the Allison Bradleys first, and you can see nice and white, good, firm. They have some weight to them. All the way through they look that good. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to place them in between the daffodils. And we're going to space them out so that this color comes up sort of all through the container. Remember, we got 6 of them. Now we can put the bulbs almost touching each other. Doesn't really matter too much. We can just be kind of random about it. So we just got our random layer of tulips there. Now we're going to take another tulip. We're going to take the Princess Irene. And I love Princess Irene. It's one of the best bulbs, I think, for forcing. It's a beautiful color. It's orange, but it has that purple flush that's going to pick up that burgundy of that one just perfectly. Now we're going to put them in between the other tulips. Move them around. Get them all tucked in there. And they'll be a nice mix as well. They're going to kind of be blended around. So we get sort of a nice mix of the tulips. You can move them around a little bit, make sure they're well spaced. And there we go. Very easy. Now we're going to take another layer of soil. We're going to cover those tulips. So we can just barely see the top of those tulips now. We've still got room in the pot. And then we're going to put in our hyacinths. So we're going to put in probably 6 hyacinths. No, 5. There's 5 in this package, so we're going to put 5 in. Again, when you're shopping for them, make sure you're feeling around for good firm bulbs. These are all good and firm. A little note about hyacinths. If you've ever handled them before and gotten really itchy afterwards, some people can be mildly allergic to hyacinths, so you might want to put gloves on just in case. You get a bit itchy, maybe a little bit of a rash temporarily, but it can happen to some people. So these are going to go in. We're going to sort of randomly space them sort of out near the edges. If you put them all into the middle, the hyacinths will get too crowded and they might stretch up too much. I've made that mistake before by putting hyacinths in the center. and they really stretched and then they flopped over. So we're going to put the hyacinths out near the edges so they are don't have any competition out here, and it should make them stand up a little bit better. We're going to sprinkle a little bit more soil on. You've still got room in the pot. Sprinkle a little bit more soil on. I can just see the tops of the hyacinths right now. And then we're going to put in 10 regular muscaries or grape hyacinths. As I say, we added these into the mix, and we didn't used to do these. We just used to do a tulip, a daffodil, and a hyacinth. But muscaries are one of the coolest bulbs to force. They do really, really well. They last a really long time. So we're just going to take those muscaries and we're just going to push them in sort of randomly around the top. If they happen to be on top of another bulb, it doesn't matter. That bulb will just come up right around it. So you don't have to worry. So just evenly space your muscaries in there. Just about there. There we go. We got our muscaries evenly spaced. Now we're just simply going to top up the pot. Fill it right up. Firm it down. And then what we do with this, we put the hanger back on. Because our next step with this, we're going to water it in well. Bulbs need water when they're planted. You want to kickstart them into growth, get their roots growing, because bulbs grow at this time of the year. They don't grow above ground very much, with the exception of muscaries, but they're growing underground. They're sending out roots, they're getting themselves established and prepared to send up flowers in the spring. So don't neglect them at this time of the year. You want to water them in well, and then we're going to take this pot and hanger, we're going to find a spot in the garden, and we're going to bury it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to jump off camera and grab a shovel. Then we're going to move over here to the garden. So over here, we're going to show you where to plant them. We pick an area in the garden that we can get to in the spring and that usually will warm up a little earlier because we want to get these pots out. So we take the whole pot like that. Put it into the ground. Notice that we've put the top of the pot a few inches below the soil surface because we want those bulbs to think that they're all just planted, just like we normally would do. Then we backfill. Firm it down a bit. And we've left the hanger on, so in the spring, we know where that pot is. The first year we did this, we forgot that we didn't do that, and it was a heck of a time finding where the pots were. This way, we can just know exactly where the pot is, put our shovel in the spring, lift that pot out, and then in the spring when we come back, we're going to drop these into our planters. We're going to add pansies. We're going to add lettuce because it's a great color filler. And we'll make beautiful spring containers using this method. It's super reliable. It's super easy. And then after you're done, you can take the bulbs and just put them out into the garden. They'll come along fine in the future. So this is how we do it. Watch again come spring when we dig these up, and we'll set up our spring containers and show you how we do the second step of this method. But this works really, really well. Just remember a couple of tips. Use earlier bulbs. So single early tulips, double early tulips, bloom with the hyacinths, bloom with most daffodils. Also watch the height of the bulbs you get. Be careful you're not getting 24 and 30 inch tulips. You want sort of 12 to 16 inch bulbs, sort of the ideal height. They work really well to force, and that's it. Very easy, great containers. Do we have any questions?
So the question is to review the bulbs that you put in.
Okay,
so the first one was...
So we planted our Ice Follies daffodil, and then we planted our 2 tulips.
Allison Bradley.
Allison Bradley's the double maroon. Princess Irene is the orange with the maroon flashes. Then we just put in a white hyacinth. Now, had I found them, I might have used Gypsy Queen, which is a pale orange daffodil, but I couldn't find it. So we used Aeolus hyacinth. It'll pick up the white. It'll be a nice contrast. And then the blue of the Muscaris. And that's going to make a beautiful, well-rounded container. The other thing we're going to do, we're going to make a note of these colors, because come spring, we've got to pick pansies that complement these colors. Because we're going to fill the pot with pansies as well as these bulb planters. So keep that in mind, that you want to match up your pansies with the colors you've used to get really good, cohesive, well-balanced planters for the spring. I think Lupin just went for a swim. Do we have any other questions?
So my other question is, from a budget standpoint, what do you think you paid per...
Okay, so per pot there, yeah, we're about 9, 18, maybe about 30 or 40 bucks per planter, which isn't outrageous, considering you can use the bulbs again. Like, we always take these planters, and when they're finished, we plant them out into the garden, and quite often they usually just thrive again for years and years, especially in our very well-drained soil. But we do get to use the bulbs again, so it's a really, I think it's a pretty reasonably economical, and it's easy to do. Now, if you ever feel that you've missed it, and in the spring you've missed it, look for forced bulbs that are just starting to sprout in the stores. You can do it with forced bulbs as well, if you don't have anywhere to sink these into the ground. That's another option of doing it.
Can you store them in the garage for the winter?
Garage storing? Possibly. I don't want to say for certain. You've got a few things you got to think about. If your garage gets cold enough, great. If it gets too cold, that could be an issue. Also, just having the pot sitting there, I would put them into a cooler or some kind of pest-proof, mouse-proof container, because if they're just sitting in their pots like this in the garage, you're open to mice and chipmunks and squirrel, anything getting into them. This way, nothing will get into them, and you don't have to worry about it. It's a bit of a hit and miss. I would definitely have them inside something that pests can't get into.
And what about watering in the garage or even in the ground?
Well,
once you've watered them.
Watered them in and soaked them in, that's it. We're not going to water them again. We're going to make sure they're well watered before we plant them or before we bury them. And then that's it. Then it's going to rain today. They're going to get some rain on them. The ground is relatively moist, so we're not going to worry about it after that. Pretty simple.
That's it.
All right. Enjoy autumn. We still got a couple of more weeks of October left. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time on Let's Get Growing.